This is Kathy Beal of EmpowermentUnlimited.net with a brief look at the astrology of the historic conviction that came down on March 30th, first ever conviction of a former president of the United States. I had said earlier in a political live with Annette Dion a couple of weeks ago that I thought it was probable a conviction would come down around the 29th. It was the 30th. And let's look at the charts. There are some very noticeable, very important things to pay attention to here. And the first one, the big one I want to point out is that transiting Uranus is right on top of his midheaven, completely destabilizing the 410 angle in his chart, which represents his place in the world, his career, his public standing, also his home and his roots. So all of that has been rattled. And spoiler, in the middle of the summer, his converse solar arc Pluto is going to move across that same spot from the other direction. Pluto is the other agent of change, this time unavoidable. So wrecking ball and then blasting coming. This is something he is not going to be able to recover from. The wrecking ball has hit, but good. It is squaring his Mars, challenging, forcing action on that. And, it's his own actions that led to this situation. It was not foisted upon him. It is a result of actions that he took. Several other things are noteworthy here. Mars, which is the planet of action, is in his ninth house of legal proceedings, and it is exactly squaring or challenging his Saturn in Cancer in the 11th, which is closely conjunct Venus in Cancer in the 11th. Now, that Saturn and Venus, I've always seen as a signature for family money, but also the Trump organization. In this instance, there was something here about holding back, limiting a woman, that's the Venus. So this is action against that, and it is exactly what this case grew out of, payments that were then hidden. There's that Neptune up there in the eighth house of other people's money. The eighth house is also one of the two houses of criminality. And in this lineup, we also have Saturn in the seventh house of allies and open enemies. Saturn being the legal system, the courts, men, authority, accountability, and it's squaring it's trining unbroken flow to his natal Saturn. Is this the judge? Is this the law? Is this the DA, the proceedings? David Pecker, Michael Cohen, all of those people, they're involved in some way. And notice that earlier in the day, notice that the moon, which is the people, this could also be the jury, the moon earlier in the day was trining his Mercury. So earlier in the day, possibly in the morning, the people, the jury, were looking at, connected to his own utterances, his own statements, his own signing of documents, papers, checks, whatever. That was part of it as well. Notice also that the South Node, which is what we're moving away from, has in the past month or so been moving across his Chiron, which is his Achilles heel, his wound, having to do with agreements with other people. Saturn, it's worth noticing that the 18-degree Pisces Saturn is in an adjustment aspect to Jupiter in Libra, but it's also squaring his Uranus in Gemini up there in the 10th. And there is a sense here of something coming to a head. I will point out that in August, Saturn in the sky is going to be at 17 degrees Pisces, so just 1 degree earlier of where it is at this point, and Jupiter in the sky is going to be at 17 degrees Gemini on top of that Uranus. Something at the end of August is also going to play into this. Unlikely that an appeal would happen that would play out that quickly, but who knows? There will be something connected. Just mark that in the back of your mind. And there's one or two other things I want to point out. The Sun and Venus up there in the 10th, lots of talk about values, about women, about the leader and women, shining light on communications and papers. That's the Gemini part, and those two are in a really uncomfortable semi-sextile minor aspect with his Mercury in Cancer, making things unavoidably irritating, something he cannot get away from. That pair is also in a sextile or an opportunity aspect to his Pluto in the 12th house. The 12th house can be things that are hidden, can be places of confinement. It can also be self-undoing, self-sabotage. And this is not, again, an instance of he brought this on himself. It's also a house of criminality. So no surprise that the people that the conversation, that the finding was of having committed crimes. And with Jupiter being involved up here in the 10th house at 1 degree Gemini in a trine to that Neptune, his natal Neptune in the 2nd house in Libra. Neptune in Libra in the 2nd house, that's making money through deceit, through fraud, through creating illusion, agreements that look like they're one thing and there's something else, and Jupiter pouring right into that would make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And that could also be a factor in the staggering number of counts in this case, counts in this conviction. So let's look now at, let's compare the verdict trial with the sentencing. And interestingly, Neptune is at the very final degree of the zodiac, almost in Aries, but not quite there. It's at 29 Pisces, in the 6th house of daily routine, how you spend your time, and it's in an exact trine with Venus in Cancer up there in the 10th house. So there's something very public happening here. And fascinatingly, so at 10 o'clock, the cusp of the 12th house of confinement and prison is at the very end of Virgo, which is a sign of limitation and would make this issue ruled by Mercury up here, which is pretty close to his Pluto. We'll look at that in a second. I have his chart in a second. But if this happens actually a few minutes later, and I'm not sure how many, not many, if the sentencing does not start straight up at 10, the 12th house cusp will switch to Libra and be ruled by Venus, which is in a very tight trine with Neptune, which I would see as an indicator of house confinement, not so much going to a prison, but being confined in a comfy, cushy, homey territory. So we'll just have to see what happens with that. I will also point out that this sentencing is 4 days before the Republican National Convention. At the time of the sentencing, Mars in Taurus in the 8th house of criminality, um, investments, other people's money, so the payoffs, will be exactly conjunct Mercury in the verdict chart. That could be the judge imposing something very tangible. This speaks to fines, possibly really big fines being involved. Um, that is a probability with that. Also note that Chiron, transiting Chiron, will be exactly conjunct the Mars in the verdict chart. So there's something possibly healing involved in all of this. And that's pretty much what I want to say. Oh, yeah, pretty much what I want to say about this way of looking at it, at least for now. And let's look at one other possibility, and that is sentencing around the defendant's chart. Now, at this point, Mars is going to be on his midheaven, so that's action that's actually implementing something really tangible. Again, this speaks to the very high probability of money fines. Um, the sun is moving in on Saturn in his chart, and it's also in an adjustment aspect to his south node and moon. So an adjustment in where he is living, south node and moon in the 4th house, and very uncomfortable. It's in a semi-sextile to his sun and north node, so an uncomfortable situation involving his public standing. The north node on this date is going to be, here it is, it's exactly trine his Pluto in the 12th house. These are the 2 houses of criminality. Um, this is not going to be probation, okay? I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but it will not be probation. Also, Chiron in the sky is squaring his Saturn. There is something here of the legal system wanting, extracting something. Mars is sextile that Saturn as well, and that Mars is also squaring his natal Mars. I'm going to say Mars in the 9th, which is the court, is going to overcome Mars in the 12th. Also, Mars in the 9th is really closely trine the moon in the 2nd house, the moon in Virgo, moon in the sign having to do with boundaries and fences and healing and the people wanting something. This is not consistent with running around free. So I don't see probation coming out of this. Not sure how it is going to play out exactly. You'll just have to wait and see. As a certain someone says, watch this space. I will have more about this on my Patreon. Patreon.com/Kathy Beal. Okay. Bye, all.